Hello, welcome to the Mythology Manifest. In my last video I told you the story of how Theseus' dad was either Poseidon or King Aegeus, and how when he was old enough he went to see Aegeus, who was the king of Athens. Theseus then went to Crete and killed the monster called the Minotaur, who was a half-man, half-bull, and the son of Queen Pasiphae and a bull, which was the product of a curse from the gods, as the king of Crete, Minos, had offended them. In this video, I am going to tell you what happened to Theseus on his way to Athens before he met his father, and these were the labours of Theseus, which I didn't mention in my last video as I wanted to get through the main bulk of the Minotaur myth. I hope you enjoy it. So, Theseus one day retrieved a sword and a pair of sandals that his father had left for him under a boulder, and decided he wanted to go to Athens to meet Aegeus. His mother Aethra begged him to go by boat, but Theseus for some reason decided he wanted to walk to Athens, which was a long journey, and so Aethra told him stories of all of the dangerous bandits that he would meet on the road. Then Theseus set off, and after a few days of walking, Theseus met the first of these bandits, who he recognised because of his shiny club. He was a large man who said that his name was Periphetes, and then Periphetes threatened to hit Theseus over the head with his shiny club. Theseus stalled Periphetes by complimenting the club, and Periphetes told him it was made of pure brass. Theseus knew its material, but he also knew how to outwit Periphetes thanks to his mother. Theseus laughed and said that the club was probably just made out of wood. Outraged, Periphetes demanded that Theseus hold it to see its weight that would prove that it was brass. Theseus took the club in hand, and he found it easy to carry, although it was a heavy brass, and some would say this is because he was stronger than others because of the strength given to him by his father, the god of the sea, Poseidon. Anyway, Theseus then hit Periphetes over the head with his own club and knocked him out before continuing his walk to Athens. Theseus then continued on his journey, and about half a day later, because it was a long journey to Athens, especially on foot, he saw a giant man with a battle axe standing on the side of the road on the cliffs on which Theseus was walking. The man yelled down to Theseus that he was Skyron, and that he owned the cliffs. Skyron also said that if Theseus wanted to pass over the cliff, he would have to wash his feet as a toll. Theseus knew of Skyron, thanks to Aethra, and knew that if he bent down to wash Skyron's feet, then he would be kicked off the cliff into the mouth of a massive turtle who would be waiting in the ocean below. Theseus asked Skyron what would happen if he didn't wash his feet for him, and Skyron said that if Theseus didn't do as he said, he would slice his head off with his axe. So Theseus made his way to the top of the cliff and got on his knees before Skyron. He saw the man raise his foot, which can't have been a pretty sight, ready to kick him off the cliff. Using his quick reflexes, Theseus grabbed Skyron's foot and threw him off the cliff, straight into the mouth of his own massive turtle. Theseus seemed to have a way of killing people using their own things, so that was unlucky for them, but lucky for him. Theseus then continued his journey, and a little further ahead he came across a man that looked a little like Skyron. The man asked Theseus if he would do him a favour, and not yet knowing who he was, Theseus said he would do him a favour. The man asked Theseus to hold down a pine tree for him, and that was when Theseus realised who he was talking to. It was Sinis, the pine bender, who got people to hold down pine trees with his help, and then he would let go and watch them catapult away for amusement. Theseus agreed to hold down the pine tree anyway, and Sinis bent a pine tree down and waited for Theseus to hold the tree down with him. When he knew Theseus had a grip on it, Sinis let go, expecting Theseus to be catapulted in the air. However, Theseus held it down. This level of strength is another reason why people believed Theseus was a son of Poseidon. Sinis stooped down to get a better look at the tree, thinking it had been broken, and then Theseus let it go. The tree hit Sinis in the chin, knocking him unconscious. Then Theseus tied Sinis's legs to one bent pine tree, and his arms to another. Then Theseus let go, and the trees ripped Sinis in half, and then Theseus left him to be eaten by the vultures. The next bandit that Theseus came across was an old woman called Fire, who is probably my favourite bandit in this myth. She was a woman who liked to stop people and steal from them before letting her giant man-eating pig loose on them. In other myths, Fire turned into the massive pig after stealing from them. Either way, I find the idea of a giant man-eating pig quite amusing, and the giant man-eating pig was known as the Crommyonian sow. Fire tried to steal from Theseus, but he avoided her, and so the sow began to chase him. It was only stopped when he stabbed it with his father's sword and it died. In some myths, the sow then turned back into fire. Next, Theseus came upon Cercyon. Cercyon forced passers-by to wrestle with him, and killed and robbed them one by one during the fight. But when Theseus encountered the bandit, he had no fear because he was strong and was known for his talent in wrestling, similar to Poseidon. If you can't tell, in my opinion, Theseus was the son of Poseidon, not Aegeus, but I'll carry on with the myth. So he fought the bandit and began to bang his head into the ground, and Theseus did this multiple times, killing him with ease. Theseus went on his way again, and when it got dark, he came across his final bandit, when he saw a large house up ahead of him. He knocked on and asked the owner for a bed for the night, and the owner was a man who said that Theseus could definitely have a bed for the night, as he had one that would fit anyone, no matter what their height, which is a bit of an odd thing to say to someone that just wants to sleep in your house. Then he introduced himself and said his name was Procrustes. Theseus had been warned about a man named Procrustes and his bed that could fit anyone by his mother. Aether had told him that the bed did fit anyone, but in a very unpleasant way. If a person was too short, Procrustes would chain their arms and legs to the bed and stretch them. If they were too tall, he would chop off their legs until they were just the right size to fit in the bed. Procrustes then led Theseus into the room where the bed was. When he asked Theseus to get on the bed, Theseus asked Procrustes to show him how the magical bed worked. Procrustes got on the bed, and suddenly Theseus chopped off his legs. And Theseus wasn't mean, he didn't like to see people in pain, so to stop Procrustes from being in pain, he sliced his head off as well. The next morning, Theseus reached Athens. He went into the palace where Aegeus lived to find that Aegeus was readying to marry Medea, who I have done a video on. Being a witch, Medea had Aegeus under her power. With her powers, Medea recognised Theseus and knew that he would try and get rid of her, but she was too desperate to become queen. So she told Aegeus that Theseus had come to kill him, and that she would give Theseus poisoned wine at the dinner that night. Aegeus, unaware that Theseus was his son, agreed. He invited Theseus to a banquet. However, when Theseus was just about to drink his wine, Aegeus recognised the sword he had left under a boulder for his son, and threw the wine cup to the floor, spilling the poisoned wine everywhere. It hissed as it hit the floor. Theseus and Aegeus were filled with happiness to have found each other, and Medea escaped narrowly in a chariot drawn by dragons, which I discussed in my previous video on Medea. And that is where my previous video really picks up, but I had to rush through it to get through the main bulk of the Minotaur myth. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment or subscribe, or even follow this channel's Twitter. There is a link to it in the description below. If you haven't seen my Theseus and the Minotaur video, or my Medea video, they should now be here and here. Let's keep classics alive. I will see you next time on the Mythology Manifest.